Good morning. Today we're going to work on some winter branches, maybe with some ornaments hanging off of them. The first thing we need to do is tape our paper down. So I am using washi tape. You can use any sort of tape that you have laying around. If it's not a tape that's made to release from the surface, like if it's Scotch tape or something, you can always kind of rub it on a towel or a washcloth, or if you're wearing pants or a shirt that have kind of lint on them, you can rub it over that lint, and that will help you take away a little bit of the stickiness, and then it'll release from your paper better. So I'm taping half the tape on my paper and half the tape on my work surface. And if you would prefer to just have tape on your paper, that's fine too. I tape it to my work surface so that I don't move it in the video for you. So what we're going to do today is make some winter branches. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into my brown. And I'm just going to make a couple of branches coming down. So this will be kind of where my branches are, where they start. And there we go. That's a good amount of branches. So those are the center of each of my branches. And then what I'm going to do down at the bottom, oh, I feel a sneeze coming on. There it was. What I'm going to do down at the bottom is make kind of a circle right here, because I'm going to have, or maybe we'll make small circles. Let's do that. So I'm going to use just my tape because it's kind of round. And I'm going to make a few little circles. And these are going to be like some Christmas ornaments that are hanging down. And I just need to make them. I'm making a very light circle with my pencil. So like there's one ornament. I'll have another one that's hanging maybe a little bit lower. And then another one over here. So I'll just have several little Christmas ornaments hanging down from my branches. You can do as many as you want. If you have a larger circle and you don't want to put so many in there, that's fine too. But this is just the idea of where they'll be. Now I'm going to make a color that is kind of a blue spruce color, I think. So I already had a little bit of green in here, so I'll just use this part of the container. So I'm going to get some water in here. And what I'm going for is just a nice evergreen green. You can use the green that just already exists in your paint palette if you want to. That's absolutely fine. But I want like a watered down version first. So I'm using some green, and I'm going to use a little bit of blue. So a little bit of blue, a little bit of green. And then I'm just going to load my brush up, and I'm going to put some little sprigs on here. So this is going to be like my little branches. And I want you to try and be kind of quick with these brush strokes, because that's what's going to make it pointier at the end. So we're just kind of pulling down from the center where it's brown. And I'm trying to keep them separate. I'm trying to keep a little space between each of these little branches. And it doesn't matter that it's very light right now because we'll go over it in a little bit with some darker paint. There, so that's one sprig. And then we're kind of going to do the same thing to the rest of them. But because I want this one to sort of dry before I overlap it, I'm going to skip this one and I'm going to go right in over here. So I'm just coming down. I'm just making like a branch on a Christmas tree. All right, and the other side. And this paint that you're using right now should be kind of watered down and kind of pastel. So this is just our first rotation. And you want it to be a little bit loose. You want to have a little bit of space between your branches there. And then let's fan it a little bit. Let's get this just a little bit dry. And you could use a hairdryer. I'm just using a handheld fan. You could use a hairdryer. You could use another piece of paper, just anything nearby. We just want to encourage this watercolor to dry just a little bit. How's it doing? Yeah. The lighter the layer of paint we use, the quicker it's going to dry. So since this was a really quick, light layer of paint, it's going to dry pretty quickly. And you might notice that we have a little bit of my brown for my branch is kind of seeping a little bit. That's okay. It's watercolor. We want it to be a little bit like that. All right, so for these next branches, same color green. So it's just some green and some blue, but I need to make a tiny bit more. And if it's not exactly the same color, that's okay. It just needs to be a similar color. All right, so I'm going to load my brush up, and then we're going to do the same thing to the remaining branches. So I'm going to come in from here and let this one have some of this downward motion. Oh, my brush is getting a little thick there. That was not on purpose. That's all right. I'm not going to worry about it because I can fix it later. So the lighter we are with these, the more overlappy these branches look. So we're kind of just making some branchy mayhem over here. Perfect. And then we can go up and do that one that's on top. We're just kind of building a lot of texture here in our little branches. I'm just going to add some extra greenery over here for fun. All right, and I'm going to give it one more fan. So this is just going to help speed up that drying. That is what we want. All right, now for underneath my tree, I'm trying to decide, do I want to have a background color? Maybe I do. I think I do. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's see. What should my background color be? Should it be kind of blue? Maybe so. All right. So I'm going to do what I like to call scribbling. Scribbling with watercolor. And I'm just going to mix some blue with some water. Little blue, little water. And I'm going to come down here and I'm just kind of putting some blue here. It's not a really dense, solid blue. I'm sort of just scribbling it in. And if I go a little bit over where my ornaments are, that's going to be okay. Because later we're going to come in and we're going to really put some color in these ornaments. It's going to be great. All right, so I'm trying not to super touch my tree, but I might touch it a little bit. And this is more of a dry brush technique. So you can see that my watercolor is not flowing from my brush like it usually is. It's kind of just a messy, back and forth, scribbly, light watercolor. So I'm not trying to completely cover the background. I'm just kind of trying to put some color in there so that we have a background, if that makes any sense at all. Need a tiny bit more of that blue. So, yeah, so we're just kind of having a little bit of motion there. I'm just kind of adding a little bit of that blue. I'm going to go back and put just plain water over the top of it. And this will hopefully dry kind of quickly as we're working on the top. That's what we want. All right. So it's sort of messy, but we've generally left the area where we want to have our ornaments open. Pardon me, I've got allergies today. Whew. And then let's grab our fan again and just give that background layer a little bit of help. And we don't have to fan it completely dry. We're just helping it. All right. So now we're going to get a little more serious up here with our needles on our leaves. So I'm going to mix more of the blue and green, but I'm going to make it thicker this time. So there's some green. Let me rinse my brush out so I can pick up some blue without making my blue paint green. All right, so I'm adding some blue. And you can see it's thicker this time. It's not as super translucent as before. And then I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of black to it. So I'm going in my black. I just got a little bit of black, and I'm going to add that to it. And that'll bring it down to kind of that more foresty green for us. Okay. So my strategy is, since this is sort of wet here, I'm going to start at the top. So I'm going to start with my upper branches this time. And I'm going to come in and I'm just putting a little bit more color into these branches. Same thing, other direction. I'm trying to leave some white space between, like I did before. But you can see that's kind of looking branchy. That's what we're going for. And then I'll pick up some more of that paint, and I'm going to skip one because I just did that one. I'm going to skip one and go to this one. This blue is drying by now because it was a very, very light layer. So I'm going to go ahead and there we go. And then let's see, I did kind of have some over here. Let's just going to add them. All right, so now we have those two in the middle. I'm going to add a little bit more, just a teeny tiny bit more black and some green in here, just to darken it up and give myself some more paint, because I don't want to completely run out of paint. All right. So I'm going to take this and let's see, where do I want to go? I'll start on this second branch. And you might be able to see that my green is a tiny bit different, and that's all right. It doesn't matter. It's only going to make my picture just a little better, I think. And I'm kind of trying to go over that brown so that it dissolves a little bit with this green. So I'm just trying to keep all of these strokes separate so that we see them. And we're starting kind of to build these little layers. I can't remember if I already did this branch. Maybe I did, but here I go, doing a little bit more. Oh, it's the bottom branch that I need to work on. Okay. All right, so that's looking pretty good, like a tree up there. I'm going to throw some speckles on it though, so I'm going to cover up the bottom of my painting for now with a paper towel, because I don't want to speckle those bottom parts. And I'm going to speckle with some green, I think. Whoops, let's see how that works. Oh yeah, that's what we want. Okay. Great speckles, that's perfect. Maybe also some yellow, just because. Sometimes there's just no rhyme or reason to speckles. It's just whatever makes us happy. And I'm thinking, because I've used a lot of green and blue, what's a color that's kind of close? Well, let's try yellow. Just to make it a little brighter. All right, this is looking wonderful. If you have white, you might want to speckle with some white. That might be a good idea. I might do that in a little bit, but not right now. Okay, so now it's time to work on our little ornaments. And this is where it's going to be really fun, because we're going to start and we're going to paint with just water. So I want you to paint in that ornament only with water. And this is one of those fun optional places where if you would like to use salt, you can. And like I said before, if your ornaments are a little bit bigger, That might even be more fun. That's just the size circle that I had handy. So this is the size my ornaments are going to be. And then once you get your water painted down, so I've kind of set a boundary for where I'm going to allow my paint to go. And let's do this first one's going to be some red. So I'm just going to dab my red around the edges. And it's important to remember that when watercolor dries, it's not going to be as bright as what we see when we first put it down. Like right now it looks pretty dark, but it's going to dry light. So I'm going to put quite a bit of paint in here. And I am just going to make part of this red. And you can see I'm just dabbing the tip of my brush, and I can do that because we already painted the whole thing with water. And then on the other half of my ornament, I think I'm going to do purple. So I'm going to go in here, and the same thing I did with red, I'm going to do with purple. So I'm going to come in and I'm just adding that purple. Just kind of dabbing it in, pulling it across the border of this ornament. And then I'll dab it in the center here to let these paints mix and mingle. Trying to make this border a little smoother. This brush is not spectacular, so that's part of my struggle. All right, but I think it's going to be fine in the end. So I'm going to leave this be. Or maybe I'm going to bug it a little bit more. There we go. So I've got this nice mixture of red and purple. And now I'm going to take some salt. So this is just salt from a to-go packet. I'm going to put a tiny bit of salt in my hand, not a lot. And then I'm going to drop it on that ornament. So you can see how much salt I've used, not a lot. If you have paint that's kind of, there's a lot of paint right here, so I want to get rid of a little bit of it. You can dry off your brush and then just touch the tip of your brush and it'll soak up some of that paint. All right, so my next ornament, let's see, what color do I want my next ornament to be? I think I'm going to go in with yellow. Do kind of a goldy color. Oh, I forgot. We've got to paint it with water first. Okay, so I'm going in first with just water. And I'm setting the edges, so I'm putting water all against the boundary so that when I come in with my paint, it will know exactly how far to go. All right. So then I'm going to go into my yellow. I'll make this one yellow. So the yellow is just filling in. And what other color should we mix with the yellow? Let's see, do I want it green or orange? Let's do orange. Since we don't have any orange in this painting yet, sometimes that's how I decide. What have we not used yet? Let's use that color. All right, so I am just gonna tap this in to the yellow and we'll see what happens. And I'm not blending it really a whole lot. I might want a little more yellow in there. Perfect. And then I'm going to go back in with a little tiny bit of salt. So just a tap, just a little bit of salt. you can see it there. Perfect. And then let's see if I can pull a little bit of this paint off the edge here. Just because I have a very rough edge. This brush probably needs to be replaced. But I will deal with that later. All right, so my next ornament is definitely going to be, I want a blue and purple ornament because I really love blue and purple. Oh, there's so much fuzz on this brush. It's a very fuzzy paint day for me. All right, so I'm going to paint in water. It's a little bit blue, but that's all right because we're putting blue on top of it anyway. All right, I've got to get this piece of fuzz off my paper. All right, so I'm going to bring in the blue. I'm just going to tap it around the edge. I love watching the watercolor do that. That's so much fun. All right, so I'm going to do some blue down here at the bottom. And I want to make it a very dark blue because I already have a light blue on the background. So I want to make sure that it contrasts. And then I think I'm going to put some purple at the top. I'm just going to dab it in on the area that's left over. I forgot to turn on my soothing music for this video. I guess you can't remember everything all the time. The important thing is I remembered my paints and my brush and my paper. All right, so then we'll put a little salt on that one. And I'm putting it in my hand first, and then I'm sprinkling on my ornament. So we're gonna let those get started drying, and we can soak a little bit of paint off if we feel like there's too much paint. That's fine. And then I'm going to soak a little bit of this paint off. And then a little bit of this one. All right, so those are going to dry, and that salt is going to do some interesting things for us. So I'm looking forward to what happens there. Let's see, do we need any speckles at the bottom? Oh, you know what we can do? We can go back in and put some more detail on these branches. Let's do that. So I'm going to make, let's see, should this be green blue or just green? We can mix in the same place that we previously mixed, but let's do just green. Let's not add that blue to it. And then we can go back in and kind of randomly do some more little green branches here. And they don't have to be as thick as we made them before. We're just adding some color. And I'm trying, definitely don't want to touch those ornaments with these. So I'm kind of just adding some random lines over here. And then where we have our branches, I'll add lines that go in the same pattern that we already put them for our branches. go. All right, so now we need to kind of let these dry a little bit. So let's get the good old fan out again. And we'll do a little fanning. So now we need to sort of start thinking about, all right, how am I going to make these appear to be ornaments hanging from a tree? Do I want to do that with pencil? Do I want to do that with paint? What do I want to do here? So what I'm going to do, it's just going to kind of be very loose and very abstract. So it's not going to be real exact. I'm going to get some black and I'm going to water it down over here. I think there's a little bit of white actually in my paint tray, but that's not going to affect what I do here. So let's water down this black, and I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to it so that we get this kind of goldy color. And then we're just going to make like the little metal part that goes up on the ornament. And I'm not going to be super precise about it. I'm just going to make like that. So I just made like a tiny little rectangle up there. It's not precise. It's not even really touching because I don't want to mess up the ornament that I already painted. All right, same thing here. I'm just going to make like a little piece above it, and then I'll do the same thing to this one. So I'm just painting some tiny horizontal lines. And that one touches, but it doesn't have to. And then you can decide if you want your lines that they're hanging down with to be made of paint or pen or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and make mine with paint. But if you're not good at the little thin lines with paint, then you can use a Sharpie or a marker or whatever you'd like. So like, that's just kind of going to go up. And we can see that this line is a little bit broken. That's all right. Whoops, it's this one. And then a little tiny bit there. And if we want to, we can throw some more speckles down here at the bottom. Now that we've got our ornaments, we're happy with them. What can I do? Let's go, I'm gonna do some yellow speckles down there. This makes me think of like the bright, pretty holiday lights. So here goes nothing. I hope this doesn't mess up the bottom, but I think it will look great. Yeah, that looks good. And then I don't really mind that I got speckles on the ornaments. I think that looks fine. Do I want to do some green speckles down here? Maybe I do. All right. And it's getting in my ornaments, but I don't mind because those ornaments are still wet and it's kind of just gonna, it's just gonna diffuse into that paint as it dries. Now, if you have too much paint in a section, you can always dry your brush off and you can go back and kind of suck some of that pigment out. But I think it's fine. I think it's gonna dry and it's gonna be pretty interesting. So I'm gonna let it dry and then I will come back and show you. Actually, first we can remove the tape. Let's do a little bit of fanning just for safety's sake. But I think the edges everywhere are pretty dry. And this is one, if you don't like the level of definition you've gotten from paint, you could always go in with a micron pen, like a very thin tipped black marker, and work over top of this. and give things more detail. I might try that. We'll see. But I'm just going to fan a little bit. Then I think I'm going to go ahead and remove my tape. Ooh, that edge is pretty. See how this edge did. This was pretty light paint at the edges, so we should be pretty successful with our tape edges. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay. Great. And then one more edge. Oh, these edges are clean and they look great. All right, and then I'm going to sign the bottom. There we go. So that's my end product for now. I'm going to let it dry and we are going to see what it looks like. I'm pretty excited.